It has been a while since I have made one of these videos. What's going on, guys? I want to talk about something that I call mind defense. I've been studying different toxic behaviors, sociopaths, psychopaths, and again, just toxic behaviors in general that can really get into our psyche and mess with our heads and destroy our self-esteem. So, excuse me, a little bit of seasonal allergies. So, at one side of the self-help spectrum, we kind of have self-love, self-acceptance, empowerment, things like that. It has its place. I am a strong advocate of reading a lot of books. You can check out my book, Empower 100. You can check out, say that fast, my book, Empower 100. You can check out Daring Greatly or Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. There's so many good books out there by Osho, different authors, right? But at the other end of the spectrum, we have, I would consider that self-help offense, right? Reflecting on ourselves, figuring out what we want, being more accepting and caring towards ourselves. That's kind of self-help offense, right? Self-help defense would be to recognize when other people are hindering your progress and setting you back, and recognizing these toxic behaviors so that they don't impede your life and bring you down to a place that you don't want to be. And these happen in the workplace, they happen in relationships, they happen in relationships with your family and friends. So anywhere there's people, this can happen, right? Again, sorry, seasonal allergies. So first thing I want to talk about is sociopaths. Did you know that 1 in 25 people are sociopaths, and 1 in 4 of those are true psychopaths? This means that on average, I think we fall in love with about an average of 4 people in our lifetimes, is what I read. Don't hold me to it. But that means on average, you have a 16% chance of falling in love with a sociopath during your lifetime. That's pretty scary if you think about it. People that have no conscience, people that can pick and poke at your sympathy, at your empathy, at your willingness to feel, at your caringness, all the best parts of you, and flip them against you and have no qualms about it. 1 in 25 people, and you have a 16% chance of falling in love with one of them. That is pretty terrifying. So, first let's talk about what is a sociopath? What are their behaviors? Sociopath means there literally is no mechanism in the brain saying this is wrong, that's wrong, this hurts them, this hurts that person, right? They might cognitively know it, but they don't feel it. So most people, if they steal from a store, they're gonna feel a little guilty, right? Most people, if they cut someone off on accident, they kind of feel a little bit guilty. Most people, if they found a wallet on the ground, somebody dropped their wallet, most people, I would hope, probably pick it back up and give it to them. That's what our conscience keeps intact, right? Those behaviors, those, giving to the homeless when they ask for food, things like that, things that make us human. When you take away the fear, when you take away the morality, when you take away the emotion part, and you're just left with the cognitive, analytical part, that's when you have a sociopath. They often don't have fear. They can drive down the highway at 100 miles per hour, and they have no regards for safety. They don't care, because they can't really connect with people. And what makes us so scared of dying is, most of the time, never seeing people that we love again. Or what makes us scared of other people dying? Again, never seeing them again. So that's where a lot of our fear comes from. When you don't have that connection, it's gone. And there's a freedom in it, but it comes at a very high cost. So, sociopaths. Let's look at the characteristics. Failure to conform to social norms. Deceitfulness, manipulativeness. So, that's number 2. 3, impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. 4, irritability, aggressiveness. 5, recklessness, disregard for safety of self or others. 6, consistent irresponsibility. 7, lack of remorse for having hurt, mistreated, or stolen from another person. This is straight from The Sociopath Next Door by Martha Stout, who is PhD. So, let's talk about number 1. Failure to conform to social norms. This could mean that they have Asperger's or some kind of autism. It could mean that they're just a very introverted. So this is just one sign, right? You can't take one symptom and say that everybody that has that is a sociopath. But here's the difference. So sociopaths don't conform because they don't feel bad about not conforming. Like somebody who's like introverted or really comfortable with themselves, or somebody with autism, they're not going to conform because they think the norms are dumb. Doesn't mean they don't care about people. It just means that often they don't agree with the norms. So, and sometimes that's how sociopaths are too, right? It's a very gray area. 2, deceitfulness or manipulativeness. So this could include gaslighting, which is going to be in part 2. This could include emotional blackmail, which I'm also going to talk about in part 2. But this could also include just fucking with people. So one example on this is there was a girl who was jealous because a coworker had a management position and she didn't, and she wanted to basically sabotage her, right? This was a really good employee that had high regards and everybody liked her. So sociopath would be manipulative just for fun to mess with her head. Like one night, and I don't know if these are real stories, doesn't really matter, right? It's conceptual purposes, but it is out of this book. So like one night she told her coworker that she was like, "Oh, are you not going to the meeting tonight?" And she's like, "What meeting?" "Oh, the one at 6 o'clock. Of course it was like 6:15 or something like that. And she's like, "No, there's a meeting? No one told me." "Yeah, it's like right across the courtyard, and it's raining out." Right? So, just to mess with her head, she made her go across the courtyard, and she preyed on her loyalty to the company to take out her jealousy on her. And that's just a very minor example of this. A really extreme example of this would be psychopath Ted Bundy, who would basically act injured and ask women for help and loading something into his car or something like that, and have no remorse for it. These people often are very charming, and that is part of the deceitfulness. If you have no remorse, if you have no guilt, you can easily go up to somebody and say, "Hey, I love your shoes," even if you're in your head thinking those are the fucking ugliest shoes I've ever seen in my goddamn life, and there's no guilt for it, right? So they can charm people, they can lie to them, and they have no repercussions in their mind. There's no morality tying them down. They think of morality as a inconvenience, and they don't really relate to it. So it's all about manipulation, and when you don't have the connection to people, all you're left with really is power. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Maybe I'll make another video about that later, actually, because a lot of the people that make it to the top are hungry for power because they can't have human connection. Anyway, number 3, impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. So this is just a common behavior. I don't know the full depth of this, but my guess would be they don't really care about other people's feelings, right? So they can just kind of make plans regardless of how it affects people. It can be like, let's say, they have plans with you and then it's canceled at the last second because there's a new shiny object they wanted to go to some club somewhere. That happens a lot. Failure to plan ahead. That could be again, it's like because you don't have that societal structure holding you accountable, and even if you do, you just don't care about it. So it's more about what they want to do in the moment, because again, They don't have to. They don't care what their spouse thinks. They don't care what their girlfriend thinks and where they want them to be. They don't care how they treat people. They just go do whatever without the repercussions, without thinking about the repercussions. 4 is irritability, right? How sad would you be if you couldn't connect with people? Probably pretty sad. Probably pretty lonely. It's not that sociopaths always, it's not that they can't feel anything, but they just can't really connect with people. Sociopaths can actually sometimes connect with very close family members and spouses, things like that, but they just don't connect to people outside of that. Psychopaths can't even connect to close family members. They're completely distant. They just see people as objects. So, of course, you could get irritable. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to feel like people are just an inconvenience in your way. And you're not going to feel what makes most of us feel very fulfilled in life. 5, reckless disregard for the safety of self or others. So this is a big one, right? I used to date a girl with antisocial personality disorder, and she would it was kind of like an open relationship, polyamorous type situation, and I didn't really like how she treated me. I ended up cutting it off because it was just too toxic. But one of the toxic behaviors she'd do is she'd go on Tinder, and it wasn't always to hook up. Sometimes it was just to hang out with people. Actually, she didn't hook up with people, really. She would just go on these dates, and she wouldn't really think twice about it. She wouldn't really think about the people that she's meeting, and it was just really reckless. She got herself in some bad situations a couple times before we started dating, and she defended it like that it was okay, and it really wasn't, because it was obviously damaging her. But she wouldn't talk about it, and she didn't care, and she didn't care that I cared, and she did not really, anytime you brought up something serious, any serious subject that really affected our relationship, she didn't really want to talk about it. She just didn't care. She didn't want anybody to care about her because it would impede her freedom. It came from a selfish, narcissistic approach, and she didn't want to care about herself because, again, it would impede her freedom, and it was her way of kind of pushing people away to play that power game. And that's exactly what you don't want in a relationship. It was not healthy. Like I said, I had to cut her off. So it did not work well. I don't think she was a true sociopath. I don't think she was a psychopath. I just think she had a lot of problems she needed to work through, and that made her very narcissistic and self-centered. So, sociopaths can connect with very few people, if any. They are dangerous. They can use your sympathy and your empathy against you. They pry in to manipulate you. And any ammo you give them, any type of connection, any feeling toward them, they will flip it over and use it for power. Obviously, this is not a formula for a healthy relationship. This is not a formula for dating people who have firm boundaries. This is not a formula for dating people who really love themselves. It is a formula for dating people who are a bit insecure, maybe a bit vulnerable, maybe a bit sensitive, and maybe a bit lost. And they take advantage of them just for fun, or for some hope of connection, or just power, ego reasons, and it's just not good. So you gotta learn to recognize the behaviors, and that's what we're going to talk about in part 2.